Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of In My Plant-Based Kitchen. I am Emma Levez-Laroque. I'm a registered holistic nutritionist and a certified plant-based chef. And every week, I invite you into my kitchen to talk nutrition, cooking, tips for healthy plant-based eating. And today's that day. So we are going to make one of my very favorite meals today, something that we make in our kitchen, myself or my husband, at least once every couple weeks, but often once a week. We have it on Sunday mornings with roasted potatoes or other roasted sweet potatoes, or something like that. And then we have leftovers for lunch, sometimes dinner, for a couple of other meals during the week. And you can make this a number of different ways. One of the things that I love is sharing recipes or recipe ideas or templates, really, that are like component meals. And you can with a few common ingredients, make the meal a number of different ways, depending on what you like and what you have in your fridge. So I'm going to show you a version of this based on what I have in my fridge today. I'm going to be sharing the recipe with you, but you can really feel like you can customize this to how you like what you've got in your fridge, and make it lots of different ways, because that's part of the beauty of it. You don't then it doesn't get boring, and you can often that's why we make it every week, because we make it lots of different ways. So this is a breakfast scramble. Some people call it a tofu scramble. I don't always make it totally with tofu, and I'll tell you about that as we go. But I've done the chopping here. So let's get started, and I'll talk as I go. So the first thing I almost always do start with is onions. I have preheated my pan, so I'm not too worried about using water to start. If you are not used to oil-free cooking, oil-free sautéing, then you can start with a little bit of water, or just keep some water handy in case things start to stick. Then you can water them down. But if you preheat your pan, which I have done, I'm going to turn it up just a bit. Then it's pretty easy to make sure that it's not going to stick anyway. Although I think maybe it's not quite hot enough. So I'm going to just take those out, let it preheat for a little bit longer. You want it to be quite hot before you put your vegetables in, and then they won't stick. Onion is a great one to start with. Sometimes garlic does stick. So if you're using onions and garlic, which sometimes I put garlic in, then I would start with the onions. Then I'm going to put the mushrooms in. We love mushrooms, onions and garlic, mushrooms. All of these are really, really beneficial foods to get into your diet every day if you can. The allium vegetables, the onions, the garlic, they're very good for your immune system. They help, so especially this time of year when we're looking to try to avoid colds and flus picking up those things, they're a great thing to get into your diet. I don't know if you can hear the sizzling, but that is indicating that the pan is nice and hot, starting to, there's a little bit of steam coming off of them. And so you just want to let this saute for a couple of, or just kind of cook for a couple of minutes until it gets a bit translucent. If you are using oil in your diet, you can, of course, start with a little bit of oil, but I would always preheat the pan first and then put the oil in. Don't cook the oil, because that's one of the things that overheating it can cause it to be detrimental to your health. But this is one of those recipes that you really don't need the oil. You don't miss the oil. I would encourage you to try it without the oil if you haven't already done that. And like I said, if you're a little bit nervous about oil-free cooking or starting without anything in your pan, just put a tablespoon or two of water or broth or some kind of liquid in your pan first, and that will help to stop the sticking. You can see lots of steam coming off. My onions are starting to get nice and shiny, releasing some water. They're even starting to get a little bit brown. So you'll notice I didn't move the onions around at first, because I was at cooking school, when I went to cooking school, one of the things that our instructor always said is let the pan do the cooking for you. If you're moving things around, you're moving them around if you don't want them to get too dark or to, you know, help them flip them over, that kind of thing. But they're not going to cook. They come in, when they come into contact with the pan, that's when they're cooking. So you don't want to move them around more than you need to. So those are getting looking nice and soft. So I'm going to go ahead and add my next ingredient, which is mushrooms. You can see, I'm not telling you the amounts, although there is a guide, a recipe. But really, you have 3 mushrooms, put the 3 mushrooms in. If you have 4 mushrooms, put 4 mushrooms in. If you hate mushrooms, leave them out. Although they are, again, an immune power food. Mushrooms have components in them, nutrients in them that they're not a vegetable, of course, they're a fungi that no other food provides to us. So they are a really great thing. I try to get them in on a daily basis. We love mushrooms, so it's not usually hard. And they're great in the cooking process too, because they provide a really umami depth of flavor, background flavor that sometimes is hard to find with other plants when you cook them and you cook them down and they start to, you know, they get brown and they start to caramelize, and their flavors, especially when they're cooked with onions, just brings so much flavor into the whole thing. So I usually try to cook the mushrooms just until they start to release their liquid. Often, depending on what I'm making, I'll cook them right down so they release their liquid, and then I'll deglaze them with something. Say I'm making a sauteed mushroom dish. But in this situation, they're going to be cooking throughout the process. I'm going to be adding a lot of other things, so I don't need to cook them too much. So just a few minutes is absolutely fine. And I'm just going to let that cook. I'm going to bring it up just another tad. The next thing I'm going to be adding is some tofu. So I'll talk about that just while we're letting the mushrooms cook a little bit. I've got just a package of tofu here, or one block of extra firm tofu. You can use medium firm tofu. You can use firm tofu. You can use pressed tofu. It's pretty flexible. But what it depends on is what texture you're looking for. And I like a firmer texture, so I tend to go for the extra firm tofu. I'm not going to, you can see I've cut it into blocks, but I'm going to actually crumble it into my tofu scramble. Often what I will do to add even more nutrients, tofu is an excellent source of protein and calcium. It's got lots of vitamins and minerals in it. It's really rich in iron as well. So it's a great food to include. It's been shown to be protective against breast cancer, prostate cancer in particular, but cancers in general. Some of the places in the world where they have traditionally eaten tofu regularly correspond with some of the places that have the lowest incidences of cancer. So it's really a known cancer benefit for preventing cancer. And also it's been proven to be beneficial for people lowering the risk of heart disease. So I'm going to go ahead and start crumbling that in. What I started to say is that sometimes, depending on what I have in my fridge and how I'm feeling, couldn't crumble those ones, I will use half a block of tofu and then use half a head of cauliflower, crumbled cauliflower as well. And it's funny, you really, it doesn't taste much different because both cauliflower and tofu are ingredients that will absorb the flavors of the other foods that you're cooking them with. And as you'll see shortly, we're going to be adding a really nice spice mixture to this. And the end result is going to taste like the spice mixture and the vegetables that we're using and the olives that we're going to be adding, rather than the tofu or the cauliflower. So, and the firm tofu has has a pretty nice, like I said, firm texture. And so it's not going to be mushy. The cauliflower also helps it to give it a really nice texture. So we are going to so either one is fine, is what I'm trying to say. Either a full block of tofu, want to add the extra nutrients of cauliflower as a cruciferous vegetable. We know that that is really beneficial as well. Lots of fiber and other nutrients. So that's a good thing to add as well. The next thing we're going to do, the tofu doesn't have to cook for any particular length of time before you start adding the next things. And you want to get the spice mixture in fairly early. So this is the tofu scramble mix that I use, and it has a bunch of nutritional yeast. It has some sea salt. It has some onion powder, garlic powder, cumin, turmeric, all of these very helpful spices for reducing inflammation in our bodies, acting as powerful antioxidants. So I did a whole episode on the benefits of adding herbs and spices to your diet, and this is a really good thing to do. Again, I eyeball it. I love a nice strong curry flavor. It also has curry powder in it. And so I am liberal with it. And I will include the actual recipe for the scramble mix. The next thing I want to do, I'm starting to get, you might be able to see a little bit of sticking here, which is completely normal. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to deglaze my pan with a little bit of lemon juice. The lemon juice really brightens up the flavors, brings out, hear that little bit of sizzling going on. Might even add the other lemon, actually. I think a little bit more lemon juice in there. It's not going to taste particularly lemony, but citrus just tends to bring out the flavors of other things. And this is such a nice addition to this breakfast scramble. I'm going to do that. And then when you add the liquid to the pan, I think I might turn it down just another tad as well. It's going to help to lift anything that's sort of sticking a little bit to the pan. It's going to help to lift it off. And that actually is usually really yummy brown, as long as it's not burnt, which it's not, but is kind of really nice caramelized flavor that will now go into the dish. So that's really nice as well. The next thing I'm going to add is some Kalamata olives chopped up. If you don't like olives, or you have somebody in your family who doesn't like olives, you can use, I would use something like a sun-dried tomato, maybe, rehydrated sun-dried tomato, or you can leave it out, but it does add a really nice tang of flavor, caper, something like that. That would be nice too. Okay. And then there are 3 ingredients that we want to add towards the end. I'm going to add some broccoli, which I've chopped up fairly small. And in terms of timing, usually what I do, because I'll often serve this, like I said, with roasted potatoes. So I'll put the roasted potatoes in the oven first. They take about 35 minutes or so, 35 minutes. And then I'll time this. So usually by the time I've made it, the potatoes will be ready. So everything will be ready at the same time. But these last vegetables, you don't want to put them in too early because you don't want overdone brown broccoli. So I will wait until we're about maybe 10 minutes away from eating, and then I will put the broccoli in and let it steam. I really don't like overcooked broccoli, so I go by the broccoli, often to make sure that it's perfectly cooked, and this will really only take a couple of minutes. Actually, not a couple of minutes, about 5 minutes. It's good to have a pot lid on hand at this point because the steaming action helps the broccoli to cook evenly. And then we're going to add some spinach. I had some spinach in my fridge, and a little bit of right on the top. I'm going to add right at the end, like a minute, just so it just gets heated. I'll add the peppers. And these are just sweet peppers. You could add spicy peppers if you like them, but I like to add them at the end because they're full of vitamin C, and overcooking them too much will get, will deteriorate that nutritional value. So I like to have the crispy texture as well, the crunch. And then once that is all done, let me see how we're doing. So you can see this is looking pretty tasty. You can load this up with vegetables. So or you can put fewer vegetables in if you just like having the tofu. Like if you want more of just a tofu scramble, like if you're missing the, sort of eggs and that kind of, then I would suggest that maybe you put a little bit of black salt, because that has sort of the eggy, sulfury flavor. But I'm not at a point where I miss eggs, but I do love tofu scramble. So, but I love to load it up with lots of vegetables. So again, this is totally your own preference. Instead of the broccoli here, you could have added some cauliflower, like little cauliflower florets, if you haven't already added it chopped up fine into the scramble mix. Other things that I've put into here, grated carrots are really nice, and they would go in, they really can go in at any point during the cooking process. Any vegetables that you like. Like I said, I make this differently throughout the year. Sometimes I'll add some in the summer when we get salad turnips, I put those in. So really anything goes, whatever you like. I think we're getting pretty close with the broccoli here. So I'm going to go ahead and add my spinach. Kale also goes nicely in here, but you do want to sort of shred it up a little bit. And here you're going to see, even though it looks completely green right now, this is going to cook down to almost nothing. But one of the really nice things about this, and I'm going to plate this for you and show you, I've been getting some comments saying, why don't you show the final product? So here we go. I'm listening to you. I'm going to plate this up, and I am going to serve it up with some salsa, some fresh, just chopped avocado, and also some of sauerkraut that I made last week. It is ready, and you will see that it's going to be a really nice colorful plate. And adding color, having color, having a beautiful colorful plate when you're serving up plant-based dishes is really important, because it looks appetizing and we eat with our eyes first. So I'm going to go ahead and add my peppers. Also, a nice plating trick, if you are really into sort of plating things and making them look nice, is to hold aside a few of your vegetables, like hold aside some of those peppers and then put them on top of each serving. Serve each plate individually. Same with the olives. You can use those little things as garnishes to put on top. Or if you've got some cilantro, if you love cilantro, I don't usually put them in or I don't usually use cilantro because my husband hates it. But sometimes I put parsley in, or other herbs, maybe some a little bit of lemongrass maybe at the beginning. That's the other thing with the spice mix. You can switch this up. You could make it an Indian-inspired scramble by using a tandoori spice mix, or you could make it a Thai-inspired scramble by using a Thai mix and maybe adding a little bit of coconut milk to it. Like there's so many. This is just a template. This is my favorite way to share cooking skills, because it helps you to get creative and just opens your mind to the possibilities. And then you've got a dish that you can make so many different ways. It makes plant-based eating so much easier when you don't feel like you have to reach for a recipe every time you want to cook something up for yourself or your family. Okay, I think this is ready. I'm going to just stick a fork in this broccoli and make sure Yeah, it's still crunchy, but I like it a little bit on the crunchy side, so I'm gonna leave it like that. I'm gonna turn that off. And let's use this. Like I said, I will often serve this up for breakfast, brunch with a bunch of potatoes. You can also do a tempeh bacon with it. You could do some field roast sausages if you like those, or some kind of plant-based sausages. You can really go to town with this. And I'll pull out a couple of those beautiful peppers for the splash of color for the top. You can see it's going to plate up really nicely. And then I have got the sauerkraut that is all ready from last week. You can see this beautiful color. Make some room here. Beautiful color. I tasted it earlier today. It's been sitting on the counter for 7 days, so it's a little longer than sometimes I let it go in the summer, but it's perfect right now to how we like it. And I have some salsa. I also did a video about that in the summer, some of my homemade salsa, so I'm gonna add that. And then lastly, I'm going to I have an avocado that is just barely ripe, which is exactly how I love it. It's a little bit, just has a little bit of give when you touch it or squeeze it. The end, peel it. One of the cool things about avocados is that is good to know. I like to peel them instead of scooping them out because they're very high in fiber, which of course we know is a good thing. And a lot of the fiber and the nutrients are found on this very green part that is right next to the skin that we often leave behind when we scoop it out. So I cut it up and then I just cut off the top, like cut off this top bit, you can see, because it makes it easier to peel it. This doesn't always work if it's not perfectly right, but this is pretty perfectly right. Maybe a little bit underripe, just in terms of ease of peeling, but it's going to be nice and I love it when it's firm to the, and then I make it into a little fan and I'm going to add it to my plate. And there we go. Lunch. So I'm going to go and eat that and I will leave you for another week. And if you have something that you'd love to see made or talked about, the nutrition aspect of it, the cooking aspect of it, I'd love to hear from you. I will put a link to my contact form in the show notes below, as well as the recipe, and I'll put the recipe on my blog as always. If you want to get notified about future episodes, I do these once a week. Hit the subscribe button, and I just learned that you have to hit the notification button too if you want to be notified of the video. So who knew? I'm not a tech person, but and I have a newsletter that I send out with that includes the recipe and so on. So you can also subscribe to that in the show notes. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. I love doing them for you. So I will see you next week. Have a wonderful week. Happy cooking.